What's up, Conroe? Welcome to a brand new edition of Nerd Thug Radio. Nerd Thug Sports, I should say. Already messing up. That's all right. Right here on 104.5, 106.1, the sister stations, and we're streaming worldwide at IRLoneStar.com. It's a Thursday afternoon. It's gotten a little chilly here. Is winter making a comeback? This is Corey DLG, and with me, as usual, is little brother Nico. How's it going?
It's going well. Yeah, honestly, it got cold last night, and I was wondering why.
Did we finish this already? Aren't we done?
I mean, winter 2, baby.
Winter 2.0. You know what 2021 needs? 2 winners. That's what it needs. That's what it needs.
Honestly.
Just when you thought you'd seen it all.
Just want summer to be here already. We got 2 months.
What are you in a hurry for summer for?
I got stuff planned.
You got nothing.
Also my birthday. That's not till all the way in July, so.
Yes. A whole season just so you can have a birthday.
Exactly.
You selfish boy.
That's why it's nice having a summer birthday, because it's just like every half year it's Christmas again.
Okay, all right. I mean, minus the music, I guess. I see your point.
Yeah.
Weirdo. So we've got a ton to talk about right now in sports. I don't really want to talk about the college basketball tournament.
Yeah, we don't like college sports in this household.
That's right. Get rid of it. Also, this has just been a weird season. There's really no. I don't think they should have had a March Madness this year, but whatever.
Yeah, imagine if the NFL had a season, but it was only a third of it.
Well, I mean, so March Madness has always been how they determine their national champion. I get why it's important to college basketball, but if we're being honest, the reality is there's still a pandemic. The vaccines, I don't think all the teams have been vaccinated. I know for a fact all the teams haven't been vaccinated because there are teams dealing with COVID cases right now. So it's almost like you're just hey, listen, scholarship athletes, risk life and limb for pride of this college. I'm not so sure that that's the pitch that you want to make right now. But
yeah,
what do I know? I'm just a human being.
Right, yeah, we're talking about college organizations. These guys aren't even human.
Do this for pride for me.
So, they're post-human money people.
They're definitely, it's harder and harder these days to be like college is the good guys.
No, yeah, definitely not.
So, I mean, that's something I think about more and more and more these days. College definitely doesn't feel like the good guy anymore.
Yeah, it used to be go get your higher education, go do fancy work that people need. Now it's just give us your money,
Yeah.
They feel like old baroness, vampire looking dudes now.
Well, and we've massively expanded who is supposed to go to college to the point now that everyone's supposed to go, which then goes back to making it kind of worthless again. I don't know. It's just
college is just the new high school, guys.
In a lot of ways, which isn't great. It's not that's not what you want to hear, but you're not necessarily wrong. All right, I need to stop fidgeting with that. I'm trying to take my laptop apart while we do this because my laptop started acting up, and so I'm trying to fix it, but I'm also trying to make a radio show.
Multitasking.
Okay. Multitasking, baby. Okay, so one thing we can talk about, though, is a lot of the NFL contract signings have been going on. We've been talking about them a little bit, but more of the humorous aspect of it, the Saints constantly just reshuffling every offseason to get under the cap. And then this year, they faced a monumental task. On paper, they were $100 million over the cap after the new cap was set.
That's some big brain math right there.
The day that Drew Brees announced his retirement, Deshaun Hill, the potential quarterback of the future, announced a 4-year, $140 billion contract extension with the Saints. Except it was several voidable years. There was no new money on it. Essentially, what they were doing is stretching his cap structure like 9 years into the future.
Nice.
So it was more of the same from the Saints.
Yeah, good old
who don't learn
money
lessons.
Manipulation.
Yeah, they don't learn lessons over there in New Orleans. They just repeat the same mistakes over and over and over again.
It's not a mistake if it keeps working.
It's kind of hard to argue that because for the Saints, this is just business as usual for them.
Yeah, this is normal.
So for them, they've just kind of moved on. They're just, we're just going to whatever. Coming into camp this year, the Deshaun Hill and James Winston are going to have a quarterback battle. They're going to decide who the starter is all through camp and all of that. So nothing's written in stone, but they're both signed for a lot of money up front, but probably nothing that hurts them after year 1 or 2. So they'll see what their future holds. And then you fast forward a little bit and you look over to somebody like Dallas, who finally after 3 years of speculation and 1 whole year of franchise tag drama and just a terrible, terrible football season, they finally got Dak Prescott locked down to, what were the numbers? 4 years, $160 million. Is that right?
4 years, $160 million. That's right. We spent like what is that? Bunch of money a year. I can't do math.
Should be 40 a year, but it's probably like 35.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It's like 35 year 1, 55 year 4 kind of things where like it escalates.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of money, though.
I mean, man, I wish they paid me that much to do okay at my job.
Just okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, first you'd have to be okay at your job, so.
I mean, I tried. Exactly. See, I'm not okay enough.
This is a just bat crazy number, right? Like just
seems like an obscene amount of money for someone who doesn't.
Now,
this team doesn't do anything.
I do think if they had franchised him again, I think he would have been eligible to get 32 or something like that because they franchised him last year. And the franchise rules, they did a new CBA, but I don't think they changed the franchise money rules. The rules used to be average of the top 5 top 5 paid players at your position. Or if you've been franchised before, or 120% of your salary, whichever is higher.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, let's say you're J.J. Watt, and you are one of the top 5 at your position, and they franchise you instead of giving you a new contract. Instead of giving you an average of the 5, they would have to give you 120% of your previous year.
Yeah, because it's higher.
Because it's the bigger number. Dak got franchised last year, so I think last year it was 26 or 28 or whatever it was. So then this year he has to get a 20% pay bump. So I think it was going to be 32, 33, 34, somewhere in that range. Just using just street math, not even talking about just whatever his contract numbers really were. So signing the 4 years at 160 for Dallas' side at least secures him for 4 years. So for them, I guess it makes a little bit of sense. For Dak, they had been going back and forth on whether or not a 5th year would happen on the contract. I guess he finally I guess Dallas is who gave up because he didn't get the 5th year. So he told him the whole time, I'm willing to sign a 5th year, but that 5th year, you're going to have to hit that $55 to $65 million range for that year because that's probably what quarterbacks will be getting at that point. And I think Dallas was just not willing to take that journey.
I think they were just over it.
Well, that's just too big of a number. The truth, I mean, honestly, that's just this year the cap went down to 185. All right, so let's go hypothetical here. Let's say the next, and I know what he's saying is that the numbers keep going up. Patrick Mahomes got 30 something year one of his new deal, and it escalates every year, et cetera, et cetera. I know what they're getting at. I understand. They're not wrong that every year it goes up. But there will be some sort of maneuvering at some point to where, okay, they can keep going up, but now they're going to maybe they start doing something where they start having like a all-star designation where like a team can designate one or two or three players and they can pay them whatever they want, but they only count $25 million against the cap or something. There's changes that are going to have to come down the road to accommodate these contracts. And that actually isn't something I made up. That's actually an MLS rule that they made up so that the Galaxy could sign David Beckham. Because there was a pretty hard cap built into the MLS at the time. But when David Beckham said he wanted to come to LA, the entire league immediately agreed that would be great for soccer. And they basically, on the fly, sent down the players' union and said, look, we got to make a new rule. We got to bring in David Beckham. And everyone was like, yeah, that's good for soccer. And they just, on the fly, changed the personnel paybook rules for him.
Right.
Which, that's kind of a compliment to who you are as a player, right? Like,
yeah, you're so important that they're like, yeah, we're willing to make new rules because we want you here.
Can you imagine, like, okay, let's say we're so good at radio that we announce we're going to go to a brand new station or something, and they have to sit down. Let's say they're unionized or something, and they sit down their union and they go, "Listen, I know we've agreed on a pay structure. We're gonna waiver that for those guys."
Yeah, like that's insane.
That's crazy. It's absolutely insane. But the crazier part was that the union went, "Yeah, absolutely. You better waiver it so that you can bring them in."
They said absolutely.
The entire players' union went, "You're gonna bring in David Beckham? Yeah, you can pay him more than us. That's fine. That's fine. Whatever you want to do there.
That's fine. He's married to a Spice Girl. He needs it."
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's got to be some kind of new rule that comes up because they're not well. But and this was the same problem that was happening with number one picks overall in the draft. They were coming in with all the leverage, and even before they'd ever played a game, their salaries were going up. And I believe Matt Stafford was the last guy who got drafted number one overall and signed a giant contract, and then the league changed the rules. So now there's a rookie pool. There's only X amount of money set aside. And so even though the salaries are going up, but they're now starting at a much lower number. So, like, I think Matt Stafford, as a rookie, was getting something like $30 million a year.
Which, if I've been in the league for 4 years, I'd be pretty upset.
Unless I was the guy drafted number one overall, and then I think there was the funniest part about it was Sam Bradford, who was a Oklahoma quarterback, taken number one overall, never worked out, injury after injury after injury. It worked out that there was a point in his career where he got paid, I think it was like $1.5 million for every touchdown he had thrown in his career in the NFL. It's a good day.
Yeah.
That's a good day. So Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys, they give him $40 million a year, basically. The salary cap's $185 this year. The point I was going to make was if you get to year 5, you're giving a guy $60 million. That's a 30-year cap. Now sign 52 other starters plus practice squad with only $120 million.
It's just not going to be even if the cap was doubled, it's still insane.
It's still a hard thing to do, absolutely. And the reality starts to become, how competitive, how good are you going to be when you're paying this guy? And a lot of people like to run the thing where they're like, oh, when you pay the quarterbacks too much, the rest of the team's bad. That's really not true. That's really not the case. Plenty of teams with great high-paid quarterbacks who are still making the playoffs. The reason that stat always comes up and always plays out is really more because of Tom Brady is the guy who keeps winning the Super Bowl. So he keeps screwing it up because he keeps taking pay cuts. But if you go, okay, well, 12 of the last 25 Super Bowls were won by one person, it tends to throw off all of your stats and your data about teams who win the Super Bowl.
Right. It's called outliers.
It's called an outlier. Like, his whole career is an outlier. But the other part of it is, like, when they made the list of greatest players in the NBA, there were a bunch of players from the late 80s, early 90s who had never won a title that were on the list. And the reason they were on the list is because they had to keep playing against Michael Jordan. They were never going to win a title. It was something that wasn't going to happen in their career because Michael Jordan won 6 out of the 10 titles that were available for them, and the Rockets won 2. So there's 8 titles gone by 2 teams. You know what I mean? So then it's like, okay, now do something. And so
it's like I was in the league for 10 years and I couldn't do anything.
Right. I led the league in rebounds and I averaged a double-double, but I never made it to the finals. It's because Jordan was in my conference. Which is actually pretty much the story of Charles Barkley. I think they went to the finals one time. And that was his only finals appearance ever. But he was a dominant force in basketball. It was just a matter of you were never gonna beat these other teams there. The $60 million, I think, is where you start. Unless they come up with some sort of new rule or structure to it, that's a crippling number to build around. I think that's too much. I think you can build around to 30 million or 35 or 40 even. It starts to be hard,
especially if
40.
the cap goes up.
Yeah, the cap going up helps, and the cap has gone up every year for pretty much its entire existence, I believe.
Right, but in 5 years it'll probably be like 200, 230 maybe.
Probably not 230, probably somewhere between 200 and 210 probably. But $60 million only leaves you 150. So unless they start accounting for these guys a different way, it will start to become an issue, an actual issue. Everything they're talking about now isn't necessarily true.
Right. And it's not like quarterbacks are known to improve over time.
Well, that's the problem, right? Like, they either do or they don't. So,
well, the only reason I say that is because, with sports comes injury and fatigue and, like, keeping a player healthy for longer periods of time is harder.
Yeah, the longer you invest in a quarterback, the more likely you are to regret it at some point.
Right.
And they are
you're paying this guy. You're paying someone $60 million, and then they're like healthy 2/3 of the season. You're like, awesome.
Well, and
I'm spending a fourth of my cap.
Right.
For 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of those problems they have to deal with. I don't. You're not wrong. I do think, though, the bigger issue is that if Dak Prescott is getting $160 million, it kind of means that your quarterback is either terrible or going to get $160 million now. And I think that's the bigger problem. It's a conversation I've had forever with my sports buddies where it's like Ryan Tannehill got, I think, $140 million, $130 million from Miami. He was never much more than a maybe average quarterback. He had a couple good years that I think put him in the top 10 for those individual seasons. But as a career, he's not somebody that anyone's ever circled and been like, Ryan Tannehill is an MVP candidate.
Right. That's the guy. That's who we've been waiting for.
And that's sort of been the problem. Like, to me, Phillip Rivers was never that guy, especially just the lack of playoff success, things like that. I feel like, truthfully, as a Texans fan, when the Colts signed Phillip Rivers, I was thrilled because I was like, okay, well, we know this team won't win a playoff game. I mean, like, the Colts aren't going to win one now that they brought in Phillip Rivers. He's not good enough. And he was never good enough, especially not old, though. So to me, I mean, we had our own problems and we imploded on ourselves. But if we'd have been 9-7, we would have gone to the playoffs. You know what I mean? So it was terrible all around. But I was thrilled to see one of the division rivals sign Phillip Rivers because I was like, okay, this team is now completely off the board. I don't even have to regard them now. Perfect. And that's because the Chargers have never accomplished anything with him as their. I think they've won their division a couple times, but again, their division back then was just terrible. I mean, it was the Raiders and the Chiefs back when the Raiders and the Chiefs were awful. So like, and then occasionally the Broncos would be good. Occasionally,
they'd be good and then throw a Super Bowl.
Right. So, no, I think the problem is if your quarterback is anything better than terrible, suddenly you're stuck in the situation where you have to either move on
or give him $100 million.
Those are your only two choices. And so Dallas was literally on what Dallas did by franchising him and trying so hard to negotiate for the 5th year and all of those different things, and probably some cut options in the contract were probably trying to be negotiated and rejected. Basically what it says is they were on the fence. Dak Prescott is somewhere in the middle of the league statistically average wise, and they didn't know if they should cut bait or keep him. And so the franchise tag bought him more time to get more data for a larger sample size. Unfortunately, he breaks his leg 3-4 weeks in, but the games he had were great. They were 400-yard games. He was just going off like a machine gun. But the season was a wash, and I think even in those games they were 1-3 or 2-2. It wasn't as though he was winning by throwing so much.
Yeah, and that's my favorite part is that everyone's like, "Oh, look at Dak's stats. Look at his stats," but he's terrible still.
Yeah, it doesn't
his
like
win percentage is still awful. Like it doesn't matter how. Like you can throw the ball 6,000 yards, but if you scored 3 touchdowns, what's the point?
Well, and it circles back to Jameis Winston, right? Like Tampa Bay really didn't know if they had somebody or not, and finally they decided they didn't. They gave him 5. They gave him his rookie deal, his 4 years plus his option year, his 5th year. And at the end of the 5th year, they said, "Nah, we're not doing this anymore."
But his stats were objectively terrible because he had like 1,000,000 yards, but a million interceptions.
Correct, and that was the problem. Is he would by the end of it, you could almost time it to where every other game was a 4 or 5 interception game, and then the next game would be 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. You'd be like, "Yeah, that's what you want to see," but then he would literally follow it the following week with 4 turnovers, and you'd go, "Why?
It's because he couldn't see. I'm convinced that's why."
Listen, I mean, they don't just laser people's eyes for fun. So the fact that he got LASIK at least means on some level you're 100% correct that he couldn't see and they had to fix that. That's undeniable at this point. What's deniable is either how much of an issue it was or if that's just going to be the excuse he uses now. Like if they just lasered a little bit and suddenly he can read perfect and it wasn't an issue downfield, then yeah. I mean, publicly he could be like, "Yeah, I had some trouble seeing, and I finally decided to get it fixed. That was a little immature on my part." And he could kind of blame the beginning of his career on that. If the truth is that they drastically fixed his sight, I mean, first of all, you still have to say shame on him, right? Like,
yeah, he's the one that was like,
not wearing glasses in games, even though he practiced with goggles. That was the piece of news that when I learned that, I then decided that this guy had no hope in the NFL. When I learned that,
he wore goggles in practice, but not
for game day, because the story that you always hear about quarterbacks is that they're over-prepared, which means the stories always come out like Kurt Warner didn't wear gloves for the first half of his career. When he played for New York, he fumbled a bunch and had trouble getting the ball from the center. They couldn't find a good rhythm. He adopted to wearing gloves, but what that meant was he wore gloves nonstop. Everything he did for practice, including just practicing getting snaps, like pregame, he did wearing gloves. Once the gloves were on, he practiced everything in the gloves, just so it would always feel 100% the same. So the idea that Jameis Winston is doing one thing in practice but another on game day doesn't bode well.
No. And I mean, like, did he played in the Saints this year, right? Because we don't even.
Yeah, yes, he was there. He was there. Remember, so last year, Drew Brees got hurt for 4 games, and Teddy Bridgewater went 4-0.
Yeah,
But they still immediately went back to Drew Brees.
Yeah.
This year, when he got hurt, they wavered a little bit, but it went Jameis Winston a couple of the games, and it went Taysom Hill, I think, one of the games. But then they went back to Drew Brees as soon as he was healthy again.
Yeah, because it's Drew Brees. If you have the option of Drew Brees, you always just go back to Drew Brees.
Well, I think the Teddy Bridgewater year, they should have gone one more. They could have given him that one game off. And I think the timing would have been, if he'd have taken the game off, then there was the bye week, and then he could have come back, and it would have been that he'd been 7 weeks away. However, he would have been, there's no doubt he would have been ready. He was doctor cleared, but hadn't practiced at all on that game he came back. And I believe they lost it when he came back during the Teddy Bridgewater era. But, I mean, it worked out for Teddy Bridgewater, too. Like, no complaints.
Yeah.
He got signed somewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, those 4 games signed him somewhere else.
Yeah, they made him a good $30+ million. And that was a guy who came into the league under the new rookie stuff. So he was only getting like a 4-year, $20 million deal as a rookie versus just 3 years before they were coming in 4 years and $88 million, 4 years, $102 million. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, financially, his whole career has been different because of that. Then in year 3, his knee just explodes so bad that people went to the locker room upset. Was his knee injury? It was so dramatic. During a closed practice.
Oof.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard them even say that before about someone's knee injury. His knee injury was so bad, non-contact on the field, that people walked off the field and went into the locker room. They were so upset by what they saw.
Terrifying.
I can't even imagine what that exactly looks like for a knee injury. But like
Eldritch horrors spawned out of his knee. Yeah, what happened?
Did he just fold the other way? Like, I don't know what happened to him. But whatever it was so bad. They basically had to rebuild the knee. Originally, there was talk like, will Teddy Bridgewater ever walk again?
Always a good sign.
Yeah, that's what you want to hear. He was 2 years removed from playing. But the Vikings did keep him. Just they didn't know what they were going to have or not. And then that year they go on the run where they literally are playing 4 different quarterbacks, but they're winning all the time. He was in that stable of quarterbacks. And he got to have a couple moments. Case Keenum got to have a couple moments. But then at the end of the day, they still lost. And then it's taken all the way to now, but Teddy Bridgewater is finally getting paid in the NFL under his. I think it was a 3-year, $90 million kind of a thing that he signed in Carolina, I believe. Replacing Cam Newton, who went to New England. He did just re-sign here in New England, who is making all kinds of moves in free agency this year. They are not going to take losing lying down.
Yeah, good old Bill can't take the fact that old Brady won by himself.
Definitely, I don't really feel like I don't. Yes, I guess logistically he won by himself in the sense that it wasn't a Bill Belichick Super Bowl. And he looked good in the playoffs. So I'm not going to take anything away from Tom Brady. But it probably has more to do with the fact that the rest of the division is a little bit better right now. The Bills are good. The Dolphins are okay. It's really just the Jets who are always the Jets. Where Bill Belichick feels like, nah, I'm not gonna be the third best team in this division. That's not gonna work for me.
Yeah, we can't go from the best to okay.
So in a cap-strapped year, they've committed to $137 million in new money to new players.
Cool. Good for them.
Yeah, they're shopping. All right, we're going to jump on to a break. When we come back, we got a new Deshaun Watson story coming up. This one is a little saucy. This is Nerd Thug Sports. We'll be right back. The Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More is a wonderful store located right there on 1488 in Conroe that sells comic books, gaming cards, gaming accessories, board games, as well as all kinds of fun, nerd assorted accessories. This is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, just reminding you that if you're interested, and if you're bored, if you got some free time, if you wanted to go hang out at an interesting or fun place, The Adventure Begins should be an option you consider. Everything from D&D Adventurers League to miniature painting, to even competitive card play, and even competitive gaming events. All those things occur at The Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More. Interested parties should absolutely check out the Facebook page for more information.
This is Rudy Tomjanovich, and welcome to Nerd Thug Radio.
Welcome back, Conroe, to 104.5, 106.1, these sister stations, streaming worldwide at irlonestar.com. As always, this is Nerd Thug Sports right here on streaming worldwide at irlonestar, and you can come hang out with us anytime on facebook.com/nerdthugradio. All right, this is Corey DLG, and coming back with me from the break is still little brother Nico.
Hey, guys.
And it's still cool on this Thursday afternoon.
Both literally and physically.
It'd be really cool, like if Thursday just sat around and wore a leather jacket and smoked. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
That's not cool. What are we, the Fonz?
Right, except smoking's not cool.
I mean...
It looks cool, but it's not good for you, and you'll die faster.
There you go. That's the way to say that. Because it does look cool. If a guy smokes in a movie, he's cool.
Right. He's cool. Is he going to die by the age of 60? Probably.
But that's why the movie's only 2 hours.
Exactly. You're not going to see that guy to the age of 60. You just think he's cool.
That's where they get you. Well, we're dumb. That's all right. Okay, so a new story is breaking about Deshaun Watson. First, let me say, we've talked about this a couple times. His cap hit if the Texans trade him. Originally I read it was 40. It's actually 29. That's still too much. I don't think the Texans can afford that much dead cap space. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're going to be terrible anyway, so why not? But I just don't think they can afford it. So I'm still of the belief that they don't trade him. However, this story broke 2 days ago. Yesterday it became a national story. It's problematic at best. Now, I'm going to tell you the name of the guy involved, and then I'm going to explain who he is and why I don't know. He's as much of a character and everything as anything else. The guy is a lawyer. His name is Tony Buzzbee. Okay? Tony Buzzbee is...
That's the guy that ran for mayor?
Yes, it is. And he's also a crazy person. And a wannabe celebrity and a wannabe famous person. He is suing Deshaun Watson on behalf of an unidentified masseuse for inappropriate sexual touching in civil court. Now, no charges have been filed, and it appears no charges will be filed. However, there are allegedly 2 women who have similar stories that they are masseuses and that Deshaun Watson acted inappropriate during at-home or private massage visits. So the first part of this story, let's start with this before we get into the story itself. What we have learned about time and history and women and the stories and all of that is take the situation seriously. So I don't dismiss the situation out of hand. I would like to hear what occurred as far as investigation, as far as the story involved. Allegedly, he, in such a way, made contact with this lady with his penis in a way that she knew would be inappropriate and didn't like it, and said something angrily about it when she brought it up, and they went their separate ways, and he later texted her and apologized, according to her.
Mm-hmm.
If there is an apology text, that immediately does paint all of this in a complicated and confusing light if you're a Deshaun Watson fan. But I do want I do want the whole story to come out. What I don't want to do is necessarily attack someone for their credibility or things of that nature. I want to hear the story. I want to know what the facts are of the case. My first issue, though, is Tony Buzzbee is a total jerk and just absolutely an attention hog and a media hog and one of those people who is just trying to get his name and his face as out there as possible. He did just run for mayor. It was a celebrity campaign. It didn't really feel like it was an issues campaign. It wasn't really running on any. Sometimes there's like an independent, but they're running on something in particular. That wasn't really the case with Tony Buzzbee. He was kind of calls jumping, like anywhere Sylvester Turner, the mayor of Houston, would take a position, Buzzbee would immediately attack him and then take the opposite. Having that be her lawyer, to me, already kind of starts her in a negative credibility position.
Yeah, because he's just someone who craves national attention.
Yeah, and apparently, allegedly, before he went public with all this, he asked for a 6-figure settlement from Deshaun Watson. And
he said no.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson said, ain't gonna happen. Now, Deshaun Watson's lawyer, actually, and I don't remember his name right now. To me, that's usually a better sign. If I don't know the name of your lawyer, that's usually a better sign that you're probably not the scumbag in this story. However, his lawyer, his comment, I actually really liked. His statement was great. It said it was along the lines of, "I'm comfortable in my relationship with Deshaun. I've known him a really long time, and I'm very confident, in seeing how all of this turns out, and comfortable with my long-term relationship with him. However, I won't comment on any case or ongoing litigation until we get into it." I think it's a great quote. Like, it says what needs to be said without disparaging, without getting into the he said, she said dynamic of what this case is going to be about. Like, it's kind of a great statement, right? Like, essentially it's him going, I believe in my guy almost no matter what.
Right.
And that's kind of what you want to hear in a situation like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good professionalism.
This is the kind of comment I want from my lawyer, not a Tony Buzzbee press release. But yeah, he did. He apparently tried to shake down Deshaun Watson for 6-figure settlement, and then when that didn't happen, he went public. To me, this feels like a blackmail attention grab kind of feeling. I hate to say that right off the bat. I understand that allegedly there are several women around town, according to Tony Buzzbee, for sure 2, but only 1 lawsuit's been filed. However, based solely on his presence in the situation right now, I'm less inclined to believe the woman.
Yeah, but I mean, it's mainly on his reputation.
It's on his reputation. Also, just the event of it. Like, settle for 6 figures, or we'll make this public. Like, you don't have to have the press conference if we make the lawsuit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
The press conference just brings more attention to the lawsuit, which makes it feel like a humiliation, not a legal tactic.
Right, because I mean, all it's gonna do is dissolve. How do I put this without sounding like just being the worst person ever? Like it destroys the credibility of the statements.
Yeah, it really does. It does, because the problem becomes now like, but it paints them in kind of the light that they are, which is blackmail. It seems fairly obvious that Tony Buzzbee wanted to blackmail Deshaun Watson. give us 6 figures or to settle this now, or we'll file this lawsuit and hold a press conference where we discuss the details of the lawsuit.
Right.
I mean, that's a humiliation campaign. That's what you do to embarrass someone into paying you 6 figures. For a long time, the Michael Jackson deniers camp have said that that's what he did, was that he basically settled to not be embarrassed by the weird stuff that he did do. They say like, oh, he was a weirdo and he did the sleepover thing, but he didn't really do the things with the kids. That's what they try and say. And then he was so embarrassed by how the sleepover stuff looks that he agreed to settle all these cases. I don't really buy that because he settled for just massive quantities of money. Does the amount of money asked for, does that give you any indication of, like, do you feel like it makes it not true?
Not like, honestly, no. I think, people are going to ask depending on how much they perceive someone's worth.
But do you think someone touching you with their penis, this got graphic, do you think that's worth 6 figures?
I mean, yeah, probably.
See, I don't know. I don't know.
And it all depends on like the evidence that goes. And I mean, like, if despite Tony Buzzbee's involvement in it, and it is true, and there is, an admission of guilt, and it wasn't like professional, like him settling for that amount of money wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, if that's what it came down to.
But him settling for that amount of money would almost guarantee that you felt he was guilty.
Well, settlement isn't necessarily an admission of guilt.
No, but the amount of the settlement, to me, I agree with that sentence. A settlement is never an admission of guilt. But the only way it's not an admission of guilt is if it saves you the money of a trial. In other words, if I give you $50,000, I don't have to pay this lawyer $100,000 to defend me in the lawsuit. Okay? So, if I give this woman $950,000, I don't think I saved on the lawyer.
No.
So,
But it could also be viewed as a premium of not having to do all of the extra legwork because,
how much is all that worth?
I don't have to do all of this. I can just pay you this amount of money, and then this problem just.
But stuff like that, like depositions and stuff like that, listen, I promise you, he wouldn't be the first pro athlete who played a season dealing with something behind the scenes.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm more talking about the fact that it's a lot of time versus the one time of just fine, take it, go away.
Yeah, it is, but it's also depending on how much money it is. Like, if I heard that they settled for $210,000. I don't know how I would feel. I would be completely unsure if he did it or not. If I heard that they settled for $870,000, I would feel like he did it and this was just the way to get rid of it.
I don't know. I feel like the amount of money doesn't really matter as long as someone gets paid.
No, I think the amount of money is the only thing that matters. For example, in the Kobe Bryant victim lawsuit, I think it was low 7 figures that she got. Plus, Kobe Bryant turned around and made a statement where essentially he acknowledged that some things occurred that perhaps did not have her consent. That's a pretty close to public acknowledgement that he raped somebody. Those two things, for me, made it crystal clear who was in the right and who was in the wrong behind the scenes there. An allegation of rape, and he'd be dealing with a ton of negative press from it and lost a bunch of sponsors and still gave her north of $1 million. That, to me, that's a bigger admission of guilt because he lost a lot of money regardless. And if I'm him and I didn't do it and I lost a lot of money, I'd have been like, we're going all the way. And then if I lose, we're going to appeal. Like, I am giving you nothing because you have cost me millions and my wife is mad and I got to buy a $12 million pink diamond ring to fix it. and I got to get an advance on my first year's salary from the Lakers because of all this embarrassment and lawyers and all this other stuff. Like, his life got way harder because of that. And then he turned around and gave her $1 million plus, and then also the statement. That to me is a pretty stark condemnation of his actions.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're right in the sense that that's not the right way to evaluate these things, but that is the public perception. If it's a low number, he didn't do it. If it's a high number, he might have. If it's legally against the rules for both of them to disclose how much it was, then he definitely did it.
Right.
Because last thing, like if I pay you off, but it's low six figures, it's $108,000 or something like that, I don't necessarily care if he gets out because it makes me sound innocent. If I give you $880,000, first of all, I don't want it to get out because it makes me sound guilty. But secondly, I don't want it to get out because then everyone else who, obviously, I'm putting my penis on people, and obviously, once they hear about this payday, a bunch more lawsuits is coming.
Right.
But if all they hear is all she got was $108,000 and Tony Buzzbee's getting 70% of that or whatever the deal is.
Tony Buzzbee gets to be the worst again.
Well, but it's not worth it for those other women. They're not going to come forward.
Right.
Again, because they would have to deal with, listen, right or wrong, there's going to be a bunch of people who go after this woman. A bunch of Clemson fans, a bunch of Deshaun Watson fans, a bunch of Texan fans. They're going to go after these women. They're going to say things about these women. They're going to find out who they are. They're going to attack them publicly and privately. They're going to attack them on social media. They're going to go through hell. For that reason alone, I hope they're being truthful because they're not going to enjoy these next 2 years or whatever it is as the process goes on. So hopefully it's for a good reason.
Right. And it's just Tony Buzzbee just here for the clout, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and Tony Buzzbee just saw a way to get his name in the headlines and keep it there. And I guess go with God that you picked him as your lawyer. But if there's even a chance that this isn't true and they're not going to take it all away and it's not going to be worth it on the back end, yeah, I would want, if I'm Deshaun Watson and I'm only paying $108,000 or $115,000 or $205,000 or something like that, I would love for it to come out publicly because the rest of the women, whether they are liars or not, or whether they exist or not, aren't going to come forward at that point because it's not worth it. But if I make it illegal to disclose the terms of this settlement, they're coming forward.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, this just situation is always so difficult.
It is, and it sucks to talk about it the way we're kind of the black and white of it. But this is the PR pop culture issue at hand. It almost doesn't matter if he really did it or not, and I don't mean that in any real way. It does matter if he did it or not. It determines if he's a good or bad person. But it's really more about the perceptions that are created that are going to determine how the public views him after this.
Right. And, you know, I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson is.
You're saying he did it.
Kind of.
You're saying
yeah,
he did it.
right.
I heard you.
No, yeah, he definitely.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm also saying his public image has already been damaged.
Oh, so
anyways.
much. This has been such a bad year for him.
Like he just keeps getting worse for him. And maybe that was the strategy. Like,
have such a terrible year. The Texans are just like, we got to get rid of this guy. Like, he's an anchor. He's the problem now. Maybe. If so, this is a good first step or third step or whatever you want to call it.
Right. Just make everyone hate you. Then you can go wherever you want because no one's going to stop you.
He's working on it. He's working real hard on it.
Or he's going to do that and then no one's going to want him because he's going to be like, what's his name? The one that was in the headlines all of like 2 years ago.
Oh, I don't
Patriot for a day.
Antonio Brown.
There you go.
Hey, Antonio Brown just won a Super Bowl though.
True.
And he might re-sign with the Bucs.
I mean, Try again. Two rings.
If at first you don't succeed. Hey, he got a ring way before the rest of those Steelers did.
Yeah, honestly.
I mean,
they should have just paid him his money.
He had a dispute against the Raiders and against New England, and I don't know how it went. There was some salary cap stuff that involved settling litigation because it involved bonuses. So I think the Patriots just gave him his money. I also think they gave money to Aaron Hernandez's family because that was an ongoing dispute as well.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, Robert Kraft had said that he will fight until his dying day, and there will never be a Robert Kraft signature on a check to Aaron Hernandez or his family.
He hasn't died yet, so
he hasn't. However, the issue is they were the year Tom Brady left, they were cap strapped. His leaving hit, I think it was a $30 million cap hit against the cap, him leaving and all the other stuff. So I think they needed the space, and so they had to waive as much other stuff as possible. So I think they paid Antonio Brown and Aaron Hernandez. I need to double check that, but if I remember correctly, they both got money from him last offseason. But the Raiders still owed him something like $25 million or something like that.
Wild times.
I mean, there's a lot of money out on the streets if you're Antonio Brown.
Just be good at football.
All right, we're going to jump out here. On behalf of little brother Nico and myself, and on behalf of the Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More, who Nico's about to tell you about, same Nerd Thug time, same Nerd Thug channel. Be sure to wash your hands, stay safe, stay clean, stay healthy. I want to thank everybody for listening on this wonderful Thursday. And Nico's going to take us out telling us about the Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More right there on 1488.
The Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More right there off of 1488 is a fantastic store with all your gaming and nerd needs. They do have events running back up. So for this week, they have Saturday, March 20th at 2 p.m. is the Pokemon Casual Meetup, and Saturday at 6 p.m. is Hammer Time. Warhammer and tabletop gaming stuff is still going on, running back up. You are going to need a mask if you want to come into the store, but they do have table space available. They're at regular operating hours. Come on down to the Adventure Begins, Comics, Games, and More, right there off of 1488. Fantastic store, well lit, family friendly. It's there for you.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening. Have a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. for Nerd Thug Radio. The Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More is a wonderful store located right there on 1488 in Conroe that sells comic books, gaming cards, gaming accessories, board games, as well as all kinds of fun nerd assorted accessories. This is Corey DLG of Nerd Thug Radio, just reminding you that if you're interested, and if you're bored, if you got some free time, if you wanted to go hang out at an interesting or fun place, the Adventure Begins should be an option you consider. Everything from D&D Adventurers League to miniature painting, to even competitive card play, and even competitive gaming events. All those things occur at the Adventure Begins Comics, Games, and More. Interested parties should absolutely check out the Facebook page for more information.
Hi, this is Kevin Smith, former Dallas Cowboy, Texas A&M Aggie as well, and I want to say what's up to Nerd Thug Radio.